how far I can go. Okay, now the first thing you need to know before you go to the total production, you need to know the production function. So before I go to the production function, you need to understand what the function means in mathematics, right? Whenever someone says function, it basically tells you about the relationship, right? Now think about this way. In particular, if someone says function, it always means one-to-one relationship. At least for this class, I'm looking for that. Now I'm going to show you in a very simple example, what does that one-to-one relationship means? Suppose I have 3 boys, boy 1, boy 2, boy 3. Sorry? Now my microphone is not working. Okay, what is happening to this one? Maybe it's battery down or something, I don't know. Its battery is down. Does it work? Can you hear me now? Okay, so I'll go back with this. I think today we have a bad luck. Everything is falling down. But we will not fall, right? So let's see. This is the boys. There's 3 boys, boy 1, boy 2, boy 3. And this is a set for girls. So there's 3 girls, girl 1, girl 2, girl 3. Right? Now say boy 1 goes for girl 3, boy 2 goes for girl 1, boy 3 goes for girl 2. Now for each boy, how many girls you get? 1. For each girl, how many boys you get? 1. Can you hear me, or is it also going down? Okay. Just on the back, if you don't hear me, please let me know, right? Apparently that goes out. I don't know what happens to this one. So this is called one-to-one relationship. But if the one-to-one relationship fails, then what will happen? Let's create another example, the boys and girls. The same thing, boy 1, boy 2, boy 3, girl 1, girl 2, girl 3, right? So boy 1 still goes for girl 3, right? Boy 3 goes for girl 2. Boy 1 also goes for girl 1. What do you think happens to this relationship? Is this one-to-one relationship? Who's cheating? Aha. So basically, we don't allow this kind of relationship. When we talk about the function in mathematics, we need one-to-one relationship. Any cheating kind of thing will not allow. Now, more importantly, if you do this, you can see the girl 1 and boy 1 both are cheating now. Right? Now, that basically means this relationship does not belong to one-to-one, but this relationship belongs to 1. Now, when we talk about the function, we always think about one-to-one relationship. So for one particular x, there will be one particular y. That's the idea. Now comes the production function. Since production function is still talk about the function, which is the relationship, so what sort of relationship we are talking about? Here, the relationship between your output and your input, right? So what is that? Suppose Q is your output, and I say Q is a function of labor and capital. So what I'm doing here, we know there's 4 types of resources in economics: land, labor, capital, and the entrepreneurship. We classified them as 2, either labor or capital. Of course, I can call it human capital if I like, right? So once we classify, I just say, suppose there's 2 types of input. One is labor and one's capital in a broader sense, right? Now, what does that mean? If I use 1 unit of labor and 1 particular unit of capital, the maximum amount of output I can get is Q, and that's a one-to-one relationship. So what does that mean? For that labor and capital, other than that Q, suppose that Q is 10, other than that 10, you don't get any other numbers. Clear? It's a one-to-one relationship. There's no cheating in here. You can get different numbers if you change one of these input quantity. Is that clear? So in other words, the production function actually tells you, given your input, what will be the maximum amount of output you can produce. Right? And that relationship, because as we talk about function, it has to be one-to-one. Is that clear? Now the question is, this is a general production function, but now I'm going to define as a short run and also as a long run production function. So what is the difference between the short run and long run? When I talk about short run and long run, it basically means I'm talking some sort of time framework here. And of course, when I say short run, is a shorter period of time I'm referring, and when I'm saying long run, it basically I'm referring longer time horizon. The problem is, how short is short? Is that 1 day is short, or 10 seconds is short, or 1 microsecond is short? Right? Similarly, how long is long? Should I consider 10 years, or should I consider century or millennia? I don't know. Right? Now the question comes, when you talk about the time period, there is a fuzzy there, because I'm not sure what short means short. It's a bit relative and subjective. Right? In economics, we get rid of that thing. We say, when we say short run, then one of the input in your production function will be fixed. At least one of the input is fixed. Say, for example, if I say short run production function, then I can write it down. Quantity is still a function of L and K, but I keep K fixed. So what does that mean? Over the time, K does not change. As long as at least one of the input is fixed, I call it short run production function. Whereas in the long run, everything varies. So basically it's the labor and capital, everything varies. There's no fixed, right? So here, it is short run. In a sense, at least one of the inputs is fixed, right? Here, no fixed input. Is that clear? You got it? Now, it's really hard. One hand you are holding this, another hand you're writing this, right? Okay, now, what is the rationale behind that? What does that mean in the real world? When you start a restaurant business, suppose I give you that example, right? In the restaurant business or any kind of business that you start with, what do? You expand at the initial stage, or you just hold on, and what you need to do, you need to keep up your capital fixed in a sense that suppose I'm running a factory. So I own the building, right? And I have some implicit cost, I calculate that. At the same time, I also hire some of the workers and technology to produce something and to make money. So when I start my factory production, do you think on the first day I will start expanding my building, technology and everything? The answer is no. One of the problem is, when you start the new product, the first thing is you need to familiarize your product to the market. So the consumer knows about it, right? Either you can go for advertisement or something else. Once it's familiarized, you sell the market, then you are waiting for when your business reaches the mature stage, right? Once it reaches the mature stage, now you're confident enough to expand your business. But till you get there, at least some of the inputs are fixed. For example, in this case, I'm not expanding my building or technology because I'm not sure what will happen, right? So that's how we do our business. We start our business, but initial stage, we don't go for expansion. Rather, we try to familiarize our product, make sure we get enough profit which sustain in the long run. And once we reach in the mature stage, then we expand our product. So this is also sometimes known as a product life cycle. In the management or marketing, you'll get that, right? So economists actually picked up that example, and they realized, okay, in the short run, because some of your input is fixed, because you're not expanding. So what does that mean? This is a short-run production function because at least one of your input is fixed. But in the long run, in the mature stage, basically after the mature stage, you expand your thing, right? Because you want to capture more market share, you want to produce more, so you buy technology, you expand your building, factories, and all those things, right? So that's the idea. So always remember, in the short run, at least one of the input is fixed, and in the long run, all the input varies. That's how we define short run and long run. Does it make sense? Okay. Once we do that, now we need to know what is the total product, average product, and marginal product, right? So when you talk about this Q, Q is nothing but your total product. So what does that mean? Using this much of labor and capital, the maximum amount of total product you can get is Q, and that's my total product, right? What is the average product? By definition, average product of labor. Now, labor is your input. Remember this one input? So average product of labor is your total product, which is Q, divided by the total amount of labor you use. That's the average product. So what does that mean? Suppose I produce 100 units of output, and I'm using 10 units of labor. So what is my average product of labor? Then it will be 100 divided by 10. That will be 10. But what does that mean? It basically means output per unit of labor. That's the average, right? So in other words, average product is nothing but it says output per unit of labor. Is that clear? That's the average product of labor. Now, what is the marginal product of labor? You already know. It is the slope of the total product curve. And how do I get that? It is the change in Q over change in labor. Right? So basically, if I increase one additional unit of labor, how much additional output will increase? That will be my marginal product of labor, because I'm changing labor. So again, I can put an example. Suppose Q here and labor here. Actually, I'll put it the other way. Labor and Q. When I use 1 unit of labor, my total production, say 20. When I use 2 units of labor, my total production becomes 25. Then I'm using 3 units of labor, and my total production becomes, say, 25. It goes to 30. Right? So what will be the marginal product? Okay, how much labor I have used? Additional labor, 2 minus 1, that will be 1. Because of that one, how much additional output I'm getting? 25 minus 20, that will be 5. So this delta Q, change in Q is the difference between this. That will be 25 minus 20. Change in labor, that will be 2 minus 1, that will be 1. So 5. And if you put 5 over 1, that will be 5. Is that clear? So in other words, what I'm saying, okay, instead of looking at the average, now I'm looking at the marginal. And go back to week 1 where we covered the marginal concept. Basically, it's the slope. What it means, if I increase 1 additional unit of labor, how much additional output I'm getting, right? Now the question is, this is the definition of the average product, marginal product of labor. Now remember, in the short run, what happens? In the short run production function, basically, you have Q is a function of labor and capital. Your capital is fixed. Clear? So what it means, you don't increase your capital. All you are doing, you're changing your labor. Clear? So keep that thing in mind. Now, I'm going to put this relationship in a picture. So page 2 is gone. Now it's the picture. So, I don't know how to do that. Okay, page 3. All of these things will be uploaded on the cloud decking, right? So you don't need to worry about that thing. Sorry?
Why don't you use this sample microphone that you got it from, and you just put the microphone on the table so you don't have to hold it?
Yeah, but the thing is, if I do that, there's a wire there, right? I can't do in that way. But anyway, I will put it in this way. That might help, right? And I'll take my there. Okay. Can you hear me now? No? Okay. Oh, man. I think this is an exceptional week, so don't worry about it. Okay, now I'm going to show the picture. Generally, because your labor capital is fixed, remember, this is a short-run production, so your Q is a function of labor and capital is fixed. Now, here, the only variable input is labor. Keep that thing in mind, right? Because it's a short run. So here, I'm showing Q. So what happens initially, that will happen. So that's my Q curve, which is my total product. Is that clear? Now look at this. I want to know what happens to my marginal product. So L, and here I'm showing the marginal product of L, right? Now remember, marginal product of L is nothing but the slope of the total product curve. Go back to your week 1, and it is defined as change in Q over change in L, which we just defined before with an example. Clear? Now suppose I'm operating here, point A, then I'm operating point B, and then I am point C. And let's see what happens to the marginal product of labor. Initially, how do I get the slope at that point? Remember in week 1, draw a tangent line. So if I draw a tangent line, that looks like this, right? So let's call this line is a line. And if I want to know the slope at this point, again you draw a tangent line that looks like this, and that's called a B line. Tell me which line is steeper, B line or A line? It's a B. I say steeper, not flatter. It's a B, right? So look at this, it's pivoting in that way. So in other words, it's very close to the vertical line, right? So that basically means B is steeper, which also means it has a higher slope value. So initially, when you go from point A to B, it also means your slope value has increased, which means your marginal product of labor goes up. But as you reach point C, look at this, what happened. Now, this line, the C line is steeper or the B line is steeper? B. So that basically means now your marginal product of labor is falling. Yeah? And if I go to this point, what will happen? So let's call it D. So this is a D line, and it is parallel to the horizontal axis, which means the slope is 0, means your marginal product of labor is 0. So now if I want to plot it, what I will get is this. Initially, my marginal product goes up, and then eventually it goes down like this. And if you go here, take a slope, you'll find the slope is now negative because it's a downward sloping. So your marginal product of labor is negative here, but initially it goes up, then it drops, and eventually once you reach this point, it becomes negative. It is following from this slope of the total product curve. Is that clear? Everyone? Okay. Now I'm giving you intuition. Why? Why initially my marginal product labor goes up and eventually it will start falling? Right? Why they behave in that way? Okay, I understand this graph. I can see that the slope goes up because initially what happens, it becomes a convex, and then you pass the point of inflection and it becomes concave. Right? Remember in the first week lecture class, there's a convex which is bowing in and concave which is bowing out. Look at this. In this part, it is a convex. But in this part, it is a concave because it's bowing out. Right? And because of that reason, initially your slope increases, then your slope value decreases. Again, those who are a bit struggling with this, go back to the week 1. Look at the convex curve slope, look at the concave curve slopes. Also look at how we calculate the slope when there's a curvature. You can listen to the echo recording as well, right? Now, what is the intuition of that in the real world? Think about this way. What happens here? The capital is fixed. Remember, this is a short-term production function. Your capital is fixed. So I'm running a business, and I fix my capital, say 100 units, and that's a fix. Now I'm hiring 1 unit of labor. That 1 unit of labor works with how many units of capital? 100. Good. So you understand that part, right? So that basically means what will happen to the marginal product of labor, which also indicates a labor productivity. Because that 1 unit of labor is working with the 100 units of capital, it actually works the full strength of your capital, so you should expect your labor productivity will go up. Right? Now suppose from 1, I increase to 10. Now tell me, 100 units of labor capital works with 10 units of labor, right? So 1 unit of labor works with, on average, how much? 10. Do you think your marginal product of labor will go up like for the first unit, how it goes up? The fact is, as you increase more and more labor, and if your capital is fixed, then that increased amount of labor will not work the full strength of capital because they have to share this whole amount of capital which is fixed. So if you increase more and more labor, what will happen? Each additional unit get less and less capital to work with, right? So you should expect your marginal product of labor will drop eventually. This is exactly what it's referring. So initial phase, the small amount of labor works with the full strength of the capital. So you expect the marginal product of labor actually goes up. But as you increase more and more unit of labor, what will happen, that additional increase of labor actually works with less and less with capital because your capital amount is fixed, it's not increasing. As a result, you should expect your additional output, that is marginal product, start to fall. That's the intuition of that. Is that clear? Okay. Now, if that's the case, the average product of labor behaves exactly the same way. So what does that mean? Initially, 1 unit of labor works with a huge amount of capital, so it should go up. But as you increase more and more labor, it will get less and less capital to work with, so average product of labor will start falling. Is that clear? Okay. So if you look at this carefully, you'll find that average product of labor curve looks like this. And this is the marginal product of labor. Clear? Now the question is, where is the diminishing marginal return? Where does that start from? Diminishing marginal return basically tells me if you increase 1 additional unit of labor, what will happen to the capital? More importantly, it will start falling. When it starts falling, your diminishing return will start, right? When our marginal product of labor start falling, can anyone tell me? Look at this. This is the curve of the marginal product of labor, and that's the peak point, right? Once you reach the peak point, then you start falling. So your diminishing return will start from this point onward. So in other words, when your marginal product of labor falls, that's the time your diminishing return starts. Now, always remember, when your marginal product of labor reaches its maximum point, that point will be also known as a point of inflection because the shape of the curvature will change at that point. It was convex. If I draw it properly, you'll find that at that point, it becomes concave. You can say shapeshifter, that point, right? And when you reach that shapeshifter point or point of inflection in mathematics, the diminishing return will start. Now, sometimes in the exam, they give you a tricky question. They give you a tricky question in a sense. They says, oh, my marginal product of labor is negative. Do you think when marginal product of labor is negative, then your diminishing return will start? The answer is no. It will start way before that. Remember, negative means I'm referring to this part. But marginal product of labor starts falling from this point, right? So your diminishing return starts from here, that is way before that negative point. Negative output, right? Negative, what do you call this negative? Negative additional output. So anyway, this is called marginal product or diminishing return. The idea is very simple. The more you get, the less you desire. Remember the marginal benefit, why it drops? It is exactly the same thing. The reason behind that, here, your capital is fixed. In our example, when you talk about that apple, remember the apple example, I was starving, and you're giving me apple, 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 and additional apple, the additional satisfaction goes down. That's called a diminishing return because the time is fixed at that point. But remember then I changed the example. Instead of having 1 day, why not we just say, okay, 1 day I got 1 apple, then you stop. The next day you give me another apple, then you stop. So basically in this case, everything is very enough. Similarly, you can think about this way, that time could be your capital. The capital is fixed here. As long as capital is fixed, it will subject to diminishing return. Why? Because as you increase more and more labor, the labor strength will fall because your capital is not increasing. So it will subject to diminishing return. Clear? Now I'm going to ask you a tricky question. What do you think? Do you think there will be a diminishing return in the long run? What do you think? So how we define the long run? Long run means when all the input varies. So no input is fixed. If no input is fixed, then of course the diminishing return is not applicable in the long run. Is that clear? So whenever someone says diminishing return, implicitly it means it is a short-run production function. Why? Because since your at least one input is fixed, diminishing return will take place. Is that clear? Okay. So we know this stuff. Now we go back to the cost. So, one of the things that you need to observe here, your average product of labor and the marginal product of labor, it's called the inverted U shape. Can you see that is the inverted U shape? Your U shape is like this. Remember the alphabet letter U in English? Don't tell me that you don't know what the U means. Umbrella, it starts with U. I'm talking about the alphabet U. It looks like U shape, right? Inverted U means opposite of this one, which will be like this. You can talk about the intersection, but I will probably say inverted U, right? So basically, always remember, this average product or marginal product, they look like this. Now I will go back to the cost, right? So what does that cost comes from? When you go through your lecture slides, you'll find there is a total cost, fixed cost, variable cost, and so on and so on. But the thing is, it is related to your production function. Now let's talk about these things. So let's go with the short-run production, right? In the short-run production function, we know that Q is a function of labor and capital, where capital is fixed. First, observe, labor is a variable input. Am I right? So let's call it variable input. Capital is a fixed input. Is that correct? Any cost which is associated with the variable input is known as a variable cost. Let's call it VC. Any cost which is associated with the fixed input, we call it fixed cost. Let's call it FC. That makes more sense now, right? So you talk about the short-run production function, you know some of the input varies, which means because this input varies, what does that mean? Your cost will also vary. Best example is the labor. As you hire more and more labor, your wage bill will go up. So these are your variable costs. On the other hand, if you talk about the fixed cost, say for example, you lease a building and for 1 year, and that cost is fixed, right? So in other words, within 1 year, your rental will not change. Is that clear? So the cost associated with the fixed cost is called a fixed cost. Fixed input is called a fixed cost, and variable input, the cost associated with that is called a variable cost. So what will be my total cost then? Well, my total cost will be variable cost plus fixed cost. Is that clear? Now I'm questioning, okay, what will be my average cost? By definition, the average cost is nothing but total cost divided by Q. So what does that mean? Suppose I produce 10 units of output, right? So my Q is 10. And because of 10 units, my total cost is 100. So what will be my average cost? 100 divided by 10, and that will be 10. But then it also known as cost per unit of output. Clear? So average cost nothing but cost per unit of output. Am I right? Everything is clear from there? Now, I want to use this average cost. So basically, total cost divided by Q. That's the definition of that. So why not I divide both sides with the Q? Q here, Q here. Can I do that? Now, by definition, what do you call this one? Average cost. So that's the average cost. This one, I can write in this way, VCQ plus FCQ. Can I write in this way? Can you see that? Can I write in this way? Now, by definition, this is nothing but we call it average variable cost, and this is nothing but average fixed cost, and that will be equal to average cost. Clear? What is that? Is that easy to understand? What's happening here? Okay. Now, in your textbook, they sometimes trick you. Now I show you what the trick they made. So can I take these things out? Hey, I'm going to upload that in the cloud, right? Okay, so page 3. Page 3 is gone, so page 4. Okay. So in page 4, can I say one thing? When it will be 2:25, please notify me, because I need to run that experiment, remember? Right? Okay, the page 4. What I'm showing here, your average cost looks like this, right? Your average variable cost looks like this. So this is your Q. Here I'm showing average cost, average variable cost. Now I'm asking you, what is your average fixed cost when I produce output Q1? That's the quiz, yeah. So basically, I'm plotting average cost. I'm also plotting average variable cost. Now, I'm asking you, I'm not interested about those two, right? So I produce Q1, I'm asking you, what will be the average fixed cost when I produce Q1? How do I get that? Exactly, why is that? Now, for example, remember this thing that I have shown you here. Average cost is equal to average variable cost plus average fixed cost. So let's write it down. So if I write it down, then it will look like average cost equal to average variable cost plus average fixed cost, right? Now, I want to know what will be the value of the average fixed cost, right? So can I write in this way, average variable cost plus average fixed cost is equal to average cost? Same pen, I'm just switching the side here, right? Now, can I write in this way? I want to know average fixed cost. So average fixed cost is nothing but the average cost minus average variable cost. Can I write in that way? So that basically means if someone asks you what is the average fixed cost, all you need to do, take the difference between the average cost and the average variable cost. Right? Let's see in the graphically how we do that. At Q1, my average cost is this much. Is that clear? At Q1, my average cost, average variable cost is this much, right? That will be my average variable cost, right? So what is the gap between these two? That's the gap. So I call these things, this is the gap. This gap, by definition, this one is nothing but your average fixed cost. Is that clear? So that's why in your textbook, when they talk about the average fixed cost, all you see, they're putting average cost and average variable cost. But I'm showing you why they're doing that. That definition will tell you exactly what you need to know. Clear? Now, notice here, average cost and average variable cost both are U-shaped. Can you see that? Okay. And what we learn about the average product and average product of labor and the marginal product of labor, what are those shapes? Inverted U shape, right? Now, here's the question. So if I want to draw marginal cost, so what is the marginal cost? Remember, this is the marginal cost. It is the slope of the total cost curve, remember? Now, we also learned that thing in the week 1. So change in total cost over change in Q, that will be the marginal cost by definition. And if you want to plot it, you'll see this. This will be your average cost, and your marginal cost looks like this. So both are U-shaped, right? And previously, so here I'm showing average cost and marginal cost, and here Q. And previously, I've shown you, when you're showing Q here, here is the average product of labor and marginal product of labor that looks like this. This is your average product of labor. Or you can say this is your marginal product of labor, and then your average product of labor is this. Clear? Is there any resemblance to some way? So look at this graph and tell me, is there any pattern here? What do you see? Yeah. So basically what you see that if my average product of labor and marginal product of labor, whatever the curve is, you just take the reciprocal of that, flip it over, and you actually ended up with average cost and marginal cost. Can you see that? So instead of this is your thing, right? So if I flip it, then that looks like this, upside down. And I can say, okay, that looks like my marginal cost and average cost, pretty much, right? But when this will happen, if I can show that this or this, they have a reciprocal relationship. If I can show that, then immediately you can prove, right? So whenever they give you a question or any figure you see, the first thing you should learn, can I see some pattern here? That's the first thing. Forget about maths and everything, right? How I get this second figure from the first figure? From here, I can see if I flip it over, then I can get it. Whether I get it the first figure, flip it over, you get the second figure, flip it over, you get the first figure, right? Now the question is, can I prove it? I will give you a very simple proof. And that's the end of these things, right? So what is the proof here? Suppose, for proof, here's the thing. I'm going to take a very specific production function. What is that? There's no fixed input. So the Q is solely function of labor, right? And labor is a variable input. Is that clear? So what will be my total cost then? Oh, before that, I need to find out what will be my average product of labor. By definition, that will be Q divided by labor. Remember? Now, what will be my cost? The cost will be your total wage bill, right? Suppose your wage rate is W, right? Then your total cost of labor will be W times L that you are using. Am I right? So what will be my average cost? By definition, that will be total cost divided by Q. Can I write in that way? Now, look at this. Total cost, put the value in here, then basically you get W times L divided by Q. Can I write in that way? Can I write this one W times L divided by Q? Can I write that way? Now, one more time. Can I write in this way, 1 divided by Q over L? That's what I need. What is that? Look at this. It is nothing but your average product of labor. So now I can write W times 1 over average product of labor. What is that? That will be equal to your average cost in this case. In the competitive market, your wage rate is given. It will not change. It's a constant. So then what it means, your average product of labor and average cost are reciprocal. So if this looks like a inverted U, that has to be U-shaped. And that's the proof. It's a very simple proof. You can see that now, right? So if someone asks you why my average marginal cost looks like that or average cost looks like that, you need to ask me, okay, the first thing you need to know, you need to go through the short-term production function. Then you need to understand what is the marginal product of labor, average product of labor, how they fall, and all those things. Once you know that, then you simply say that marginal cost and average cost is nothing but the reciprocal of average product and marginal product. And the proof is there. It's not a hard proof. Is it a hard proof? Right? So basically what it means, if you know average product and marginal product, you can immediately get the cost. And if you know the cost, you can also get from marginal product and average product of labor. All you need to know, what is the wage rate. Is that clear? So let's see how far I have covered. Okay, so perfect competition. We cover economic profit and total profit and everything. We covered that example. We covered the production function. You see, short run, long run, we covered that. Then the definition, we covered that. I give you homework. What is the homework? Please listen carefully. Go home and do this exercise. So from this table, find out how I get the total product and labor is given, but how I calculate the marginal product and the average product. Because in your final exam, I might give you the table and I ask you to do that. So this is a good example, right? Calculate how I get marginal product 25, 35, 20, 10, and 5. How I get the average product 25, 30, 26.67 and all those things when your labor and total product are given. Right? It's a simple math. Follow the definition, you'll get it there. And if still you have a confusion, you will get there. There's a one typo error. It should be L1, not L minus 1. Could you please correct that thing? There's a typo error there. Then, can you see the total product and the marginal product goes up and then goes down? We already know why is that. And then, can you see the average product and marginal product? Those are inverted U-shape. Then we talk about constant return to scale and a large increase in return to scale. The thing is, in the long run, we definitely know the diminishing return will not work because all input varies. If all input varies, then we need to look at the return to scale. So what is the return to scale? Very simple. If I increase all the inputs by 10%, how much my output will increase? If it increases exactly by 10%, then we call it constant return to scale. If it increases more than 10%, we call it increasing return to scale. If it increases less than 10%, then we call it decreasing return to scale. So basically what you need to do, if I increase the whole units, or whatever inputs I'm using, if I increase all of them by certain proportion, is my output increases exactly by that proportion, or less than that, or above that? If it's exactly with that proportion, you call it constant. Less than that proportion, then you call it decreasing. Above that proportion, you call it increasing. Clear? So in other words, the return to scale is applicable when we talk about long-run production function. Correct? Okay. Now, this is the definition of the total cost, total fixed cost, total variable cost. I already covered that. That's the thing. Remember? Does it look familiar? Okay. Then again, this is your second example. Again, I ask you, make sure how I get these numbers. Please do it. Because you'll find very soon there's a practice question which required those skills. And in the final exam, there will be some questions which are related to that. It will be much easier if you practice, because in the final exam, if I ask you, okay, these are the table, calculate average cost, average variable cost, all you need to do is just follow the definition and put those figures. Right? And that will give you full marks. Is that clear? So please make sure that you do the practice of that. Now, these are the shape. I already shown you that shape before. And now the long run cost. Now remember, the long run actually comes from, is also U-shaped, right? Now if you look at that, can you see that increasing return to scale, constant, and decreasing return to scale? So what does that mean? When there's an increasing return to scale, what is the increasing return to scale? If I increase my input by 10%, my output increase more than 10%. So obviously, in that case, cost per unit will drop, right? This is exactly why in the increasing return to scale, your cost is falling, average cost. But when you call it about decreasing return to scale, if you increase your input by 10%, all of your inputs, your output increasing less than 10%. In that case, your cost per unit actually goes up. That's why average cost goes up. In the constant return to scale, it will reach the minimum point. Because how much proportion you increase your input, your output increase exactly in the same proportion. Clear? Again, it's come from the increasing or decreasing return to scale. Now is the total revenue. So what is the total revenue? We already know that. Price times quantity. If I sell output, say 2 units, and price is $10 per unit, what will be my total revenue? 10 times 2. That will be 20. So what is the average revenue? By definition, it is the total revenue divided by Q. In other words, it is also known revenue per unit of output. Clear? And keep in mind, your average revenue is also equal to price. So why is that? Okay, I'll go back to the page 5. Is that page 5 or page 6? Oh, page 5. So here it is. So by definition, so sorry, I need to put the .com on. Okay, by definition, here it is. Total revenue is nothing but the price that you're charging and the output that you're selling, that is price times quantity, right? What is your average revenue? By definition, it is the total revenue per unit of output, so total revenue divided by Q. Now put the value of the total revenue here, then what will be that one? Price times Q divided by Q. Can I write in this way? Now if you Q cancel out, eventually that will be price. So your average revenue is nothing but your price. Clear? Now is the marginal revenue. Again, it is the slope of the total revenue. And how do we calculate change in total revenue over change in Q? When I say change in Q, basically you take two successive total revenue and take the difference of that. That means total revenue 2 minus the total revenue 1, and take two successive quantity and take the difference of that Q2 minus Q1. That will give you marginal revenue. If you still don't understand, I can tell you the example. Suppose, here is an example. Your price doesn't change. Price is 10, right? Your quantity, initially, you produce 1, now you produce 2. Your total revenue by definition, 10 times 1, that is price times Q. So 10 times 1, that will be 10. And here, 10 times 2, that will be 20. Right? What is your average revenue? Look at this. By definition, is a total revenue divided by Q. So what is your total revenue? 10. What is your Q? 1. So 10 divided by 1, that will be 10. And here, 20 divided by 2, that will be 10. But we already know that. It says average revenue is equal to price. So our price is 10. Clearly, average revenue is also 10. Clear? So what is your marginal revenue now? Marginal revenue is a change in total revenue over change in Q. So basically, if I increase quantity by 1 unit, right? So the change in Q here is 2 minus 1, that will be 1. So how much my total revenue increases? So that will be 20 minus 10, that will be 10. So that will be change in total revenue, which is 10. So basically in this case, you will get 10 over 1, that will be 10. Clear? Again, this is a good exercise. Again, we need that thing as well. If you look at the problem set, you'll find there's one table which actually I asked to calculate all of this. Your total cost, your average product, your average revenue. So this is a very good exercise, right? So this is your exercise 3, how I get those numbers. Clear? Make sure that you understand that thing. I already shown you in the lecture class. I think if you go through that thing, it will be much easier. But if you understand those 3 examples that I give you as a homework, right, for self-study, it will give you easy mark in your final exam. Clear? Okay. Now we are talking about the perfect competition. In the perfect competition, what happens, the characteristics is a large number of buyers, large number of sellers, identical product, free entry, free exit, and both buyers and sellers are well behaved. Just give me 1 minute, I'll just take it and look at how much charge it has. There's no charge there. 3 charges, okay. Now, okay, it's charging again. So basically what it means, a competitive market, first feature, large number of buyers, that means there's thousands and billions of buyers. Large number of sellers, again there's thousands of billions of sellers, right? That's the first condition of the competitive market. Why? Because if you have a large number of sellers, that will ensure there is enough competition among the sellers. If there's a large number of buyers, that will also ensure there will be enough competition among the buyers. Now let's see if I drop this assumption and then what will happen. Seller 1 will be very simple. Take out all the large numbers and keep only one seller. What will happen? Monopoly. Do you think it will be competitive environment? Monopoly has a market power. It can manipulate the whole market, right? Because it makes the price. But in the competitive market, they don't make the price, they actually take the price. Clear? Okay. Now suppose you have a large number of buyers and I relax the other assumption, you have a large number of sellers, right? And I relax the other assumption. Instead of having large number of buyers, we have only one buyer. What will happen? Again, it's called a monopsony. Now the buyer has got the market power. Because buyer realized, okay, I'm the only buyer in this market. So all of them, suppose you are all producers, and you have to sell the product to me. If I know I'm the only buyer, what will I do? Very simple. I don't like you, I'm not going to buy from you. I like you, give it to me. This is the price. And if you don't agree with my price, I'll go someone else. Hey, here's the price. Because I know if you want to make profit, you have to sell goods to me. You have no other option. Now I'm going to use my monopoly power. The best example is China and the mineral market. When it comes to the iron ore or the coals or natural gas, China is one of the biggest buyer in the world because their energy demand is very high. 60 or 70% of these mining product, they're the buyer. Now, every time, who are the sellers? Brazil, Australia, and all other countries. They always make sure that China is happy. They fly there, make sure the bilateral trade agreement works. And if China says no, they will negotiate that. In fact, Japan start complaining about China because China forced Japan to offer a lower price for iron ore. And Japan has no other alternatives but follow that suit because China is the biggest buyer. It's the monopoly now. You see? And opposite one is the monopoly where there's only one seller. The best example is the OPEC, which I explained, or also the Microsoft. You know the Microsoft company? That will be the another case. Clear? Second assumption, identical product. So when in economists we say identical product, what does that mean? It basically means no matter which attributes you consider in terms of taste, preference, shape, whatever attributes consider, they are exactly the same. In the real world, sometimes it's very difficult to get that. Even you go for the same apple tree, that will not give you the same shape of apple. But however, if I consider a dairy product, pretty much is very much identical. If I consider the petroleum products, say for gas price, petrol price, each are very identical. Right? Now see, if the product is not identical, what will happen? The thing is, the best example, again, look at Pepsi and Coke. They are similar, but not identical. When the products are not identical, then each of these producers realize that their product is unique to some extent because no other sellers or producers are able to replicate it. That little uniqueness actually gives you a market power. Right? So for best example is Pepsi and Coke. Even though we say they are substitute goods, but the fact is those who like Pepsi, they don't go for Coke. And those who like Coke, they don't go for Pepsi. And this company knows that. So they are using their market power there as well. So again, you will deviate from the competitive market. The third one is the free entry and free exit. So that basically means whoever wants to enter in this market, most welcome. And whoever wants to exit from the market, most welcome as well. Because I'm here, sometimes I have to go there, right? Otherwise, these students will think, oh, Nobin goes there. Oh, here I am. Okay. Now, the thing is, these are also a vital feature in competitive market. Now, if I drop that, what will happen? The first thing is, the market will not be competitive. How? Can anyone show me how the entry and exit, if you drop that free entry and free exit, the market will not be competitive? Here's an idea. Again, I come back to the Microsoft. Why do you think the Microsoft actually spends billions of dollars in research and development? What is the purpose of that? Just to increase your Windows version from 9 to 10 or something like that? That minor change will give you that much money? What is the purpose of spending billions of dollars? Sorry? Maintain monopoly, innovation. That's the thing. He's also right. It creates barrier to entry. When I spend billions of dollars, of course I'm doing R&D, but I also gives a signal to my competitors, hey, look at me. I'm investing billions of dollars in my R&D. So if you enter in my market and try to get my market share, be careful. I'm going to retaliate no matter what you do. In fact, if you look at the Microsoft history, remember that Netscape Navigator and Internet Explorer, how they kill it, right? You'll find that they are very, very aggressive. In other words, always remember the monopoly always try to keep entry barrier high. By making a high entry barrier, you actually keep your market share intact. Right? Another example. Go back to your assignment. Now I draw your attention. Isn't that nice? So we are talking about the Amazon International, which is basically Amazon US site. Hey guys, if you need me, you ask me to go there, right? I'm just comfortable here because one of the reasons is some wind comes there and I feel a bit hazy in this side. So basically, if you look at the Amazon, online shopping, Amazon is a dominant firm. They have a market power, right? When the Australian government actually imposed GST, remember, the monopoly, they can exercise their market power in a very nasty way. Immediately, they retaliate. They says, hey, you do that, okay, fine. I'm going to open this amazon.com.au, that will be there. But the international site, you're free to use that, but I'm not going to deliver to Australian address. It will be only delivered to US address. Now, it also means they are actually retaliating with that policy. Whereas the other online shopping, for example, Alibaba and eBay, they says we are not going to do that. We are not blocking the Australian consumers. The fact is, Amazon realized there's lots of consumers from Australia, they are using the US site. Basically, this is their international site. And one of the beauty of the international site is you'll find there's lots of varieties available, and they are much cheaper than amazon.com.au. For example, I go the other day before 1st of July. When I go to the book, the same book, published from Springer, Amazon International, they're asking $50. And you have to pay $30 because of the express post. That will cost me $80. Same book, when I go for amazon.com.au, it is asking me $128. Now, Amazon knows that, right? And they want to retaliate. So every time you do something with the monopolist, they will not be happy. This is one of the examples. And that's why the entry barrier and exit is very important. Another example, in Australia, if you look at the domestic flight industry, who are running the domestic flight industry? Qantas and also the Virgin Blue, right? And before that, now we have a Jetstar. No, Jetstar is a sister company of the Qantas. We also have a Tiger Airways and all those things. But I'm going to tell you this story, then you will understand. Before that, Virgin Blue and the Qantas, they are running the domestic industry. Now, what the Qantas did, they realized Qantas is a dominant firm. Remember that. Any dominant firm has a market power. They can always create an entry barrier. Qantas realized that the best way to do it, I'm going to offer the Qantas with a higher price with high service. At the same time, I'm going to offer the lower price and low service, which is running by Jetstar, and I can capture two different types of segments of the market. Whereas the Virgin Blue go with the lower price and lower. So they are actually competing with Jetstar, right? That's what they're doing. Virgin Blue CEO says that, oh, the Qantas is playing a very nasty game. They keep us miserable. In fact, they are. Now, remember, Qantas is a dominant firm. At any time, they can kick out Virgin Blue from the market, right? They control both segments of the market. They can charge price in such a way that the Virgin Blue will be out. No question about that. But the Qantas is not doing that. Why? They always make sure that the Virgin Blue always stay in the market. Basically, they are creating entry barrier. What sort of entry barrier they're creating? During that time, there's another dominant firm wants to enter in the Australian domestic industry. Do you know that? I'm talking about 10 or 6 or 7 years back. It's called Singapore Airlines. Now remember, the Singapore Airlines is a dominant firm. When the two dominant firms fighting, that means engaging in the price war, the price will go down drastically. right? Consumer will be beneficial from that, right? Qantas realized if Singapore Airlines enter, then my position will be very miserable. Why? Because we both start fighting, and that fighting drives down our profit. So how I need to stop Singapore Airlines? Well, the first thing we need to do, make sure Virgin Blue is there. Right? If Virgin Blue is there, the ACCC says, okay, there's a competitor there, so that should be fine. Singapore Airlines retaliates. Do you know how they retaliate? When Qantas create that kind of entry barrier, Singapore Airlines immediately launch, it's called a Tiger Airways. Do you know behind the Tiger Airways who own their maximum share at that time? It is the Singapore Airlines. Do you know after Tiger Airways introduced how the Qantas retaliate? Qantas retaliates in this way, okay, fine, you enter in this market yet, fine with that, but you can't use my infrastructure. Now that basically means I'm keeping your cost high, because now you have to come up with your own desk, own thing, right? Now I'm creating some sort of entry barrier by keeping the cost high. Now the Singapore Airlines starts, okay, you are retaliating, I'm going to do that. Do you know how they retaliate? They cut down the price. I remember during that time, Tiger Airways offering a price, if you want to go from Melbourne to Gold Coast, $30. Let's fight. You want to fight? I give you a fight. The thing is, this is the two dominant firms fighting, right? Each dominant firm has a market power, and when they fight, it becomes nasty. But believe me, we are so happy. And I take a holiday because of $30, right? Consumers are very happy because the price goes down. But basically, this is an example when you have a market power, how you create an entry barrier. The reason is you don't want the other firms to enter, because if they enter, then your profit will go down, right? So clearly, free entry and exit is a vital thing in the competitive market. The second one is both buyers and sellers are well informed. That's another thing that you need to know, that all the buyers and sellers, they know exactly what the cost is, and everyone knows that. It's a common knowledge. As long as it's a common knowledge, there is no scope for manipulation. Why? If I ask you, what is the marginal cost or cost of production for the Microsoft Office? Can you tell me? Well, we see sometimes they give 50% discount, sometimes they get 70% discount, sometimes almost free, some of the product. But that doesn't give you exactly what their cost is. The thing is, a monopolist will never let you know what is their cost, because that is their source to manipulate the market. So they will never keep their secret out. Yes? Okay, thank you very much. That's all right. Now, I'm going to run an experiment. So notes on perfect competition, which I'm going to cover. Sorry for that, because we lost 45 minutes, right, on the outrage. It's beyond our control. I don't know what to do after that. So I'm going to run an experiment. Now, I need 10 volunteers, right? Here it is. Suppose, now, whoever the volunteer is, just take a piece of paper with you, and whoever, 10, 20, whatever you like, right? Can anyone wants to be volunteer? Just raise your hand. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, at least I need 10, right? Take a piece of paper right now. Now, here's an exercise. You have to pick 2 numbers, right? Between 1 to 10, right? Such that if you pick the first number n, the second number has to be n plus 2. And it has to be natural number. So what does that mean? There's no fraction is allowed. 0, 1, you can't take 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. But then you cannot exceed 10, right? So the highest number you can take is 10 minus 2, which will be 8. Because the one number you choose, another number will be 8 plus 2, remember? Right? So pick those 2 numbers, right? Once you pick those 2 numbers, make one number as your unit cost of production. Now, while you are doing that, please don't let you know your friend. Why? Because I'm going to call an auction here. So you are the sellers, I'm the buyers, right? And my purpose is, look at this, and here, I want to buy a pen. This pen, it is identical. Everyone produced the same pen, except one thing. Information, I don't know whose cost is what. I don't know that, right? Clearly, you can see that. All I'm asking you, I have some vague idea. You choose a number that lies between 1 and 10, and then I'm going to randomness in here because you have to choose two numbers such that the difference is 2. It has to be the full number, right? Natural number. One of this number you choose as a cost. Now write down, that is your unit cost, that is marginal cost. Cost of producing 1 unit of pen, write it down. You can't choose both numbers, you have to choose one number, right? Now here's the thing, as a government, I'm calling for a tender. My purpose is I want to buy a pen, only one pen. And because of these 10 sellers, I don't know whose cost is what. I don't know that. But as a government, I'm buying it. Now remember, government has no money of its own. So government generates taxpayers' money. And government wants to minimize the tax, so the one way to do it, if I get a pen at a lower price, that would be really good. Because then I can save taxpayers' money, right? So here's the thing. Out of these 10 sellers, whoever offer me a lower price will win the auction, right? Your objective is to maximize the profit. Now, if your cost is, say, $2, and you are charging price $10, right? You're making a profit. But then, there is a good chance someone else is charging only $3 price, right? Then you will be out of the picture because I'm going to buy only one pen. Whoever offers me lower price will win. So make sure higher price, it gives you a higher profit, but it also brings a chance that you might lose the whole market because no one is going to buy it from you, right? You might lose the auction. Keep that thing in mind. Your maximum profit, I don't know, the minimum profit, zero profit. And when it says zero profit, that's the economic profit. So every factors of production get their returns. Clear? Now, I give you 1 minute. Write down your unit cost. And also, bidding price, that is asking price. The price that I need to pay. Do you understand my thing? So you put your cost price, you also put your asking price. Say if my cost price is 2, I'm asking price is 3, that basically means as a government, I have to pay you $3. 3 minus 2 is your profit. But if you charge higher price, then chances are very good that you might lose the auction. In that case, you lose. If you choose a lower price, there's a good chance you might win the auction, right? Now the question is, how low you can go? You need to make sure you get zero profit at least. Higher profit will be fine, but at least zero profit, that means everyone is winning. Factors of production get returned. You have 1 minute. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run, I will list down your company name. So you need to name your company XYZ, right? So here's your task. XYZ, you put your unit cost, you put your asking price. And I'm going to summarize these things, and whoever give me lower asking price will win this auction. This is called a tender. Generally, the government tender works in that way. Let's see what you do, right? Okay, 1 minute. Do it. For the off-campus student, I'm going to summarize this auction, and so that everyone can see what you have done. So here's the summary that they've done. So I'm going to write down your name of the company. Then I'm going to, please do not share your information with your rival firm, because if you let them know what is your cost price, they can cut the price and win the auction, and you will be kicked out from the market, right? So your action of releasing your secret to someone else has some consequences. So this is why we call it sealed bid auction. Sealed bid means only you know, no one else, okay? So name of the company, your unit cost, I'm going to write down your unit cost, and here is the asking price. Now remember, asking price is the price that I need to pay because I'm the buyer. Unit cost is nothing but your marginal cost. So give you 1 minute time. I need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 minute time, and then I'm going to collect those papers and I'm going to summarize what you have done. Thank you. Do not discuss your strategy with others. At the end of the day, you need to win the auction, right? This is a good example how you compete in the market. You have 35 seconds. $15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Time is up. Give me the thing. Did you got that? Okay. Thank you. 3, 4, 5. Okay. 6. Thank you. 7. I need some more. Oh. 8. 9. I need one more. Anyone? Oh, thank you. 10. Okay, let's see what you've done. So here's the thing. I got the result. The auction is closed. The tender is closed. The government gets all the tender now, and he's going to open it, right? So let's open the box. The first name of the company is, what do you call? United Beverages, right? What is that? I will call it United Private Limited, right? So let's see. You can also see what he does. So United Private Limited, his cost price is $3 and his bidding price is $5. Okay, that's the first one. Second one is Samsung. Cost price is $2. Asking price is $4. So obviously UPL is out. The third one is called Kier something. Kier, I'll just call it K Company. $2 unit cost, bidding price is $4. Still they are level. Here it is, Deccan Pen, so I call DP. Unit cost is $5, $7, right? Now this is a VGP, so VGP, $2 and $3. Okay, at the moment VGP is winner. All of them are gone now. I can clearly see. Then Ekika, I should call it APT Limited, right? Whatever it is, $2, $3. They're the level. So the next one is coming $2 and $3. So again, so it's called what company is that? Natural something, or I don't understand. What is the company of this? Natural. Natural. Okay. So that's the N company, $2, $3. Okay. Now there's another company. I don't know what's the name of this company, but I will just let you know the unknown company. Right. So $1 and $3. So Pen PP Private Limited, whatever it is, then again is $1, $3. So basically, this one is, again, I don't know what's the company's name. Sorry? A? Okay. A company, $3, $10. Are you going to rob me? Come on. Okay. This is the company. Unit cost. So basically, 2, 4, cost is 2, bidding price is also 2. So basically, 11 company, higher price. So I'll just call it H company because I'm not sure what. Oh, ABC. Unit cost is $2 here, and the bidding price is exactly $2. Auction has closed, and let's see what happened. First, oh man. If you really want to hire a manager, don't hire him. He's going to rob everything, right? So that will not care. So the winner of this company is ABC. His unit cost is $2 and charge price exactly $2. So he's getting zero profit, which means every factors of production get their return and there's no excessive level of profit, right? Okay, but if you look at very closely, everyone try to very close their unit price. Look at this, 5, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 7, 5, 3, 2, then 1, 3. So try to very close. At the end, whoever is wins, what is charged? Exactly equal to marginal cost. So the first observation is, observation 1, winner here is ABC, and it is charging price which is exactly equal to marginal cost. That's the first observation. Second observation, the efficient company is also ABC. Look at this, is marginal cost is 2. There's other efficiency companies, there's 1 here, but they're not, they're wiped out. They're more efficient but wiped out. Why? Because they're charging a higher price. Clear? And now the question is, if is a 2, then I know this 1, 1 is there, right? So whoever that unknown and PPL company, could you please raise your hand? So here it is. Now as a government, I say, look, both of you have a marginal cost $1, $1, right? At the moment, I got one who's offering a $2 price. Now can you do better? She's giving $1. How about you? $1. So look at this. Once I release the information, immediately price drops to marginal cost. And now what happens? Unknown and PPL both try marginal cost equal to price, which is exactly $1. Now here's an example. You did that. Did I say anything here? Okay. Now see how it is related to our case. First of all, it says you need to look at the notes on perfect competition. Remember that red one? So this is the notes that I have created, and it becomes very popular at the moment. Is it too short? You can't see that, right? Can you see that? Okay, so I will make it bigger then. One of the important thing is, when you say the competitive market, you always remember the equilibrium of the competitive market is what condition here? Price is equal to marginal cost. When I call for that auction, what do you give me? Exactly the same thing. Can you see? Did you know that thing before? So I arrest my case. We just solved the perfect competition. The thing is, you realize, remember, one of the problem of the auction is, I don't know whose cost is what. In fact, I don't know. All I say, you pick the two numbers and you choose one number as a marginal cost, right? And I give you some range, but that range could be hundreds or something. I can elaborate that thing, right? But you choose your unit cost, so I don't know. That information is now. But what I want to know, I want to get a price as the least price. Because I'm the government, I want to minimize the cost. And if I get the things at the least price, the taxpayers will be happy because I'm not going to spend so much taxpayers' money or wasting taxpayers' money. This is one of the purposes why we call an auction. When you call an auction, even though the information is not perfect, what will happen? The result or the outcome of the auction market will be very close to the competitive market, which is price equal to marginal cost. Right? But it will save your time. Why? Till I receive that, I don't know whose cost is what. Right? If I go door to door, as a government, I can always do that. Right? But then it will take ages to get all this information. Right? I don't want to do that. So all I do, because I don't know the information, but I want to create a competitive market. So I call for an auction. And in the auction, initially, $2 exactly equal to $2 wins. But once the information is available, then I go to the unknown company and PPL, hey, you guys have a marginal cost 1.1. Can you do better than that? They immediately realize, okay, I and other guys, so let's engage in the price war. That price war gives me the efficient price, which is exactly $1. So one of the implications of the competitive market is price always equal to marginal cost. In other words, price reflects the true cost in the competitive market. The second implication is the efficient firm survive. So in other words, it allocates resources efficiently. Clear? We just finished. And more importantly, what is the profit? Each case is $1 equal to $1 or $2 equal to $2. Profit is zero profit. We just finished the competitive market outcome. That's it. Next week, I'm going to show you exactly how this thing happens. But keep that thing in mind. You don't know these results, but you produce exactly the result that the textbook predicts. That's the beauty of this experiment. Even I don't know that. How beauty is that? Right? So let's finish it here. And sorry for that thing because outrage. So next week we'll cover that notes on perfect competition and monopoly, right? And also a little bit of the game theory. Sorry? Sorry? The Blackboard session, there will be a practice question on week 3. Sorry?
Don't they look at utility?
Thank you, everyone.